y'all. So it's a really windy day today, and I'm hoping that this works out for us with the sound and everything. I did a test, and so far the microphone right here, you can't see it for my hair, on my earbuds is the best. So we're going to go with that. So today I want to cover chapter 1 of Women Who Run with the Wolves. And just to remind everybody that the lens that I'm looking through is that of when you have woken up to toxic behaviors in humanity, and specifically narcissism. So that's the lens that I'm looking through as I go through this book. I've read it several times. It's a beautiful, wonderful book, one of my most favorite books of all time. I hope you get something out of it, and let's dive in. Okay, so chapter 1 is called The Howl, Resurrection of the Wild Woman. And she talks about La Loba, the wolf woman, La Loba. And, you know, I had mentioned in some of my other videos about how it seems like parables, like in the Bible, and stories that are passed down generationally in all different cultures seem to have like a deeper meaning in our lives. It's like it touches us on a deeper level in our heart, in our psyche, and I really didn't know why. I didn't have an answer for that other than just feeling like, you know, it seems to be very true. And so it's kind of cool because I opened back up to chapter 1, and it's been many years since I've read this book, so I don't remember the specifics, and so this was a surprise for me. In chapter 1, she basically gives a very brief overview. That means that the reason that stories stick with us, and this is my words, okay, but the reason they stick with us versus just teaching in a very straightforward manner, you know, bullet point manner, is because we can enter into the stories. We can relate to them. It's like as somebody's telling us a story or we're reading a story, it's immersive. It's an immersive experience. And so all the descriptive factors are there, you know, like when they describe smells and the scenery, it puts you there in your mind, and it's almost like akin to experiencing it directly, you know. And it's kind of like, you know, parents talk about how kids are hard-headed and you can try and teach them something till you're blue in the face, but a lot of times they're not going to really get something until they make their own mistakes, you know what I mean? And I think this is similar to that. It's kind of like reading about something, hearing about something is one thing, but when it's a very engaging story that you can, in your mind's eye, put yourself in the middle of, it is like you're experiencing it. So it's almost like real life. And I think that is why these stories reach us on a deeper level. So I thought that was kind of cool, that it basically means we're experiencing them almost. We're pretending like we're actually experiencing them without physically doing it, right? So she opens up chapter 1 describing how a lot of times academia can be the cause for severing that instinctual part of us. It's like we're born into this world natural, with that natural connection with our psyche and with the spiritual realm. If you're a spiritual person, which I am, so I'm going to speak through that lens as well. But you're still intact, you know what I mean, as far as that connection, that inner connection, your internal GPS, that inner guiding light. And then as you start to move out of the gut into the mind, and everything becomes intellectualized at that point, which we need. You know, I'm not saying we don't need it. We need it to function in society. School serves a very important purpose. I get it. I was a teacher. But it kind of gets us away. We shift away from that deep intuitive knowing inside of us into, you know, just purely our mind, analyzing everything. And so she says that sort of over-intellectualization obscures the patterns of the wild woman and the instinctual nature of women. And again, this can apply to men too. But let me read you a little bit more here. She says, so to further our kinship relationship with the instinctual nature, it assists greatly if we understand stories as though we are inside them rather than as though they are outside of us. We enter into a story through the door of inner hearing. Now this is interesting. The spoken story touches the auditory nerve. And then she describes like how the actual auditory nerve runs through our brain and everything. She says the ancient dissectionists spoke of the auditory nerve being divided into 3 or more pathways deep in the brain. They surmised that the ear was meant, therefore, to hear at 3 different levels. One pathway was said to hear the mundane conversations of the world. A second pathway apprehended learning and art. And the third pathway existed so the soul itself might hear guidance and gain knowledge while here on earth. Listen, then, with soul hearing now, for that is the mission of story. And I thought that was cool, So, I mentioned I was a teacher. I taught for 6 years, and it's interesting because you learn that people learn differently, and they call it learning styles. So as you're teaching in a classroom, you're trying to make sure that you're covering, all the different ways that you present the information, visual for those who were primarily visual learners. And then you have the tactile, the kids that need the hands-on learning, as well as the auditory. So there's just so many different routes to learning, and I thought that was cool that she kind of explained the importance of auditory here in this regard. And so basically she gets into the purpose of reconstructing the purpose of and the route by which it happens, constructing that connection again. And again, she personifies that internal intuition and our instincts, our innate instincts. She personifies that in Wild Woman. So she says, bone by bone, hair by hair, Wild Woman comes back. And then through night dreams, through events half understood and half remembered, Wild Woman comes back. She comes back through story. And so I thought that was really cool. She gets into, from there, talking about the wolf population and how, the wolf population had dwindled down in certain areas in the U.S. And I'm going to read to you this little section here. She says, when she had traveled to Texas and Mexico, and she says, you see, it is told that there is a place in the desert where the spirit of women and the spirit of wolves meet across time. I felt I was onto something when in the Texas borderlands I heard a story called Loba Girl about a woman who was a wolf who was a woman. Next, I found the ancient Aztec story of orphan twins being breastfed by a she-wolf till the children were old enough to stand on their own. And then she goes into like a story with a Spanish story with the Pueblo people of the Southwest. And then she talks about the bone people. Okay, so this is really interesting. And she says, bone people stories come in many shapes. La Loba is one. And then she gets into the story of La Loba here. And she describes La Loba as an old woman, who's just kind of let herself go, and she's just fully in her, she doesn't give a flip attitude, right? Which is kind of what a lot of people sink into as they enter old age. It's just fully strong in who you are, irregardless of society's expectations, right? So it's cool to read her description of this old woman, La Loba, and all the different names. She says she is called by many names, Bone Woman, the Gatherer, and Wolf Woman as well. She says the soul work of La Loba is the collecting of bones, and this is going to resonate with you if you listen to my other videos, especially the one about the introduction, the last one I made about bones, right? It's very symbolic. So that is the sole work of La Loba, collecting the bones. She is known to collect and preserve, especially that which is in danger of being lost to the world. And then as she's collecting these bones, she is basically constructing the entire skeleton. She's just pulling them and finding them, pulling them back, and piece by piece reconstructing the skeletal remains here. And she says, when she has done this, when she has accomplished finding all the bones, assembling all the bones, and she has the full creature intact with the bones, she stands over this creature and she sings. It's a very soulful and deep song. And then what happens is the creature begins to flesh out. The flesh starts to be reconstructed and revived. And then the creature becomes furred. The fur is restored. Finally, its tail curls upward, shaggy and strong, she says. Shaggy and strong. And then it begins to breathe. That's the next step. From there, it opens its eyes, leaps up, and runs away down the canyon. And then I'm going to read to you this little paragraph here. This is cool. Somewhere in its running, whether by the speed of its running, or by splashing its way into a river, or by way of a ray of sunlight or moonlight, hitting it right in the side, the wolf is suddenly transformed into a laughing woman who runs free toward the horizon. So I thought that was really beautiful. And then she gets into what this means, what the story of La Loba means for us, okay? So through the lens of narcissism, when you have lived however amount of time it is, for some people it's a decade or more, it's multiple decades. When you have lived with a very controlling person, a dominating person who seeks to snuff out that light inside of you, that connection with Wild Woman, with your intuitive nature, that deep knowing inside this super deep level of your psyche. These controlling people, that's the point. They want you handicapped in that manner, where you're not listening to yourself, you're doubting yourself, you're looking to them for all the answers. When in reality, the truth is really reversed. They're the ones who need you, okay? So that's what's so crazy about this. But you're left with just remnants of who you once were before you got entangled with this controlling person. And those remnants, she kind of colors in these stories as bones. And so it is the work of us to reconnect with that strength inside of us, La Loba, that force inside of us that's still there, even if that light has almost been snuffed out and it's dwindled down, it's still there. And so we have to grab onto it. We have to get really strong in our knowing of who we are and trusting ourselves despite all that we have coming at us trying to get us to doubt ourselves, okay? So this is where that faith walk comes in. You're a lot of times when you're in the midst of this kind of stuff, that's when people find another richer level of their spiritual beliefs. They reconnect with God. Maybe they were religious and then they turn more spiritual. It's just it's a process. And so that's what this is about, is the process of regaining yourself, your true self, your trust in yourself, your instincts, your intuition. It's about regaining that, reconstructing that part of you. And it's personified in this story about the creature's bones, that's all that's left. And so I think the word is arduous. It's coming to me. I'll have to check. But it's just a really painstaking process, one bone at a time, and it's not something you can rush. Just like a lot of us got entangled in this mess over many, many years, because a lot of what was happening to us, this conditioning we went through, we didn't realize what was happening. And it took a while to break us down. You know what I mean? The stronger you are, it's going to take a while to break you down. And then you have to expect, it's only natural that it's going to take a while to reconstruct. And so you really got to have that perseverance. And so our work is to sing the song, just like Loba stood over the bones once she put them all together. Kind of like all the pieces of the puzzle. You know, when you start researching, you're like, something's wrong. I can't put my finger on it, but something's wrong. You start researching and educating yourself, and you stop doubting yourself so much, and you start really questioning more, you know, in your life, other people and circumstances and your experiences, and you start putting those bones together, and it paints a picture for you. The puzzle starts coming together. And then at that point, you start singing over the bones, which means you've gathered, in my opinion, it means you've gathered enough evidence to validate what you think is going on. And when you're singing over the bones, it means you're having that compassion for yourself. You're rebuilding that trust in yourself once again. And it's healing, it's strengthening, and it's a necessary first step in that process to get your old self back, but even more so, you know, even better, stronger. So she says it is a resurrection story. Yes, it is. To sing means to use the soul voice, and to me that means just getting real. You know, even if you're not singing, you're speaking the truth. You're no longer protecting this person that you love that doesn't love you back. You know, you're no longer keeping secrets for them. If they're treating you bad, you start to tell a few trusted people. It's not like you're going to run out and slander them, and or at least I don't advise that, just running out and slandering a person. But if you have one or two close people you can really trust, or, you know, counselor or therapist, life coach, you can start to, you know, speak your truths. Share the experiences that you've been through, because you own that. Your experiences, that's something you own. And even if you're not singing, if you're just speaking those truths, that's very empowering. And it's kind of like giving them a life of their own, just to acknowledge that this is real. This is real. It's not in your mind. And even though you may have been made to doubt yourself, it's true and real. You can believe what you see with your own eyes, what you hear with your own ears. So it's a deep, healing, soulful process to go through this, to not only start believing in yourselves, but to trust yourself and to speak your truths. Stand strong in your truths, and that's what it's about. So she says to sing means to use the soul voice. This is done by descending into the deepest mood of great love. Now, this is important. I'm going to read you a little sentence here, okay? So really listen to this. This is done by descending into the deepest mood of great love and feeling, till one's desire for a relationship with a wildish self overflows. Then to speak one's soul from that frame of mind. From the frame of mind of being in that deep mood of great love and feeling, okay? So it's not, again, it's not a reaction-based thing. You're not just, you know, getting carried away with your emotions once you realize what's going on. You're not just getting angry and just spouting off and gossiping and yelling and, you know, throwing attitude around. It's not a reactionary kind of speaking your truth. It's being able to wake up to it, realize it, hold it in, process it, be strong enough to do all this, and then have that power over yourself to control those emotions, process them, and get to a place of peace and deep knowing that resonates with you before you start to speak your truth. And that's the place you want to speak your truth from, because it's just going to be better. You're going to be taken more seriously. You're not going to be accused of slander and things like that. It's your truth. It's your truth. And anything spoken from a place of love is going to yield better results than something that's spoken from uncontrolled emotions, no matter what it is. So that peaceful place inside, okay? And then she gets into just explaining the full essence of wild woman through various stories, through different cultures, and it's just beautiful the way she writes. And she calls La Loba the old one, the one who knows, and says that she is within us. Okay. And then I want to give you just a little example of her writing here. She says, there is speculation that the immune system of the body is rooted in this mysterious psychic land, and also the mystical, as well as all archetypal images and urges, including our God hunger, our yearning for the mysteries, and all the sacred instincts, as well as those which are mundane. Some would say the records of humankind, the root of light, the coil of dark, are also there. It is not a void, but rather the place of the mist beings, where things are and also are not yet, where shadows have substance and substance is sheer. It's just an example of her writing. It's really beautiful, right? So she goes into very poetic descriptions of who and what La Loba is and what she is not. And then she starts talking about the place inside of us that La Loba resides, and she says, she describes the danger of us casually stepping into wild woman's domain where La Loba lives as well. And so it's a serious thing. It's not something just to dabble in here and there. And then it's kind of like, this is powerful knowledge to access, and if you just dabble in it and think you've got enough of the knowledge to act on it and you run around, it's like being irresponsible with it. So I think that's what she's saying. So she says, each woman has potential to Rio Abajo Rio, this river beneath the river. She arrives there through deep meditation, dance, writing, painting, prayer making, singing, drumming. Hold up, it's really windy today. I love the outdoors, though. I can't bring myself to be inside. Active imagination, or any activity which requires an intense altered consciousness. A woman arrives in this world between worlds through yearning, and by seeking something she can see just out of the corner of her eye. And she says, practicing any of the arts will get you there in that state. And so if you're an artist, and I have a background in art, a strong background in art, and I know what the process is about. It's not always, if you create anything, music, any kind of arts and crafts, then I'm sure you've experienced this, that the process feels more important than even the result. When you have that true artist's soul, and it transforms you. The process itself is transforming, and she's basically explaining that it can be a meditative process, and it can help you to access that part of you inside where La Loba, wild woman, live. Okay. I swear, if it's like traffic, loud trucks, the wind, and now a train. I hope you guys can hear me. It's kind of funny. I'm gonna check when I'm done, and I hope that the sound quality is worthwhile here, and I hope my camera don't fall over. I've done the best I could holding it up. Okay, so then the second part of chapter 1, she gets into another story, and she says, it's a story about 4 rabbis. And I was talking about how it's important when you reach this understanding of this deep part of your psyche, how it's powerful, and we shouldn't just play around with it. She says, the care with which this psychic state must be entered is recorded in a small but powerful story of 4 rabbis who yearn to see the most sacred will of Ezekiel. And it's a really short story. And again, I'm going to encourage you to read the book yourself. And there's other content creators who have actually read the book on YouTube, and you can research that and listen. So this is chapter 1, the story of the 4 rabbis. She says this is after the story in the book. She says the story recommends that the optimal attitude for experiencing the deep unconscious is one of neither too much fascination nor too little, one of not too much awe, but neither too much cynicism, Bravery, yes, but not recklessness. So we have to take a balanced approach and honor and respect the power that accessing this part of ourselves really holds. Okay, because we're going to then act from that, out into the world and affect ourselves, our life, and the lives of others too, right? So then she just kind of goes into explaining in depth her take on the story. And then she says, when you are changed, when you are restored, it's you're different. You're forever changed, and it's true. When you go through a period of your life where you're controlled by a narcissistic individual, and just a lot of our life experiences, no matter what they are, we're supposed to change and grow, for the better, and we're supposed to get stronger and wiser. That's part of the journey. That's, in my opinion, the goal of the journey, and also to expand our love and our peace and our connection with the higher being, God, whoever you refer to as God. So let me read you this little bit here. So she says, so imagistically, be you a black wolf, a northern gray, a southern red, or an Arctic white, you are the quintessential instinctual creature. Although some might really prefer you behave yourself and not climb all over the furniture and joy, or all over people and welcome, do it anyway. In other words, be yourself, When you come back into this awareness, you've done the work and you've strengthened yourself once again, just be yourself. And it says, some will draw back from you in fear or disgust. Your lover, however, will cherish this new aspect of you, if he or she be the right lover for you. So this is the way to know if people are your people or not. If you're hiding your true self, your true thoughts, your truths, then it's going to be hard to really know who belongs in your inner circle in your life and who doesn't. So we have to stand bold in our truths, and that will repel some people, and that's fine. And it's also going to draw our people, our true people, our soul family to us. And so that's part of the process. And then it says, some people will not like it if you take a sniff at everything to see what it is. I like how she describes this like we're wolves, In other words, we're not just going to blindly trust going forward after this. We're going to take a sniff at things, and use our judgment and trust our judgment. And then I'm going to read to you the end of chapter 1 because it's beautiful and important. A woman's psyche may have found its way to the desert out of resonance, or because of past cruelties, or because she was not allowed a larger life above ground. So often a woman feels then that she lives in an empty place where there is maybe just one cactus with one brilliant red flower on it, and then in every direction 500 miles of nothing. This describes a lot of people who come out of narcissistic abuse. They feel very lonely because they have been a lot of times purposefully isolated. You literally are. You were made to be lonely, to be dependent on that one person, right? So you wouldn't leave. But when you get strong enough and you stand on your own, a lot of times you really are on your own. So I like how this kind of relates to that. So in every direction, 500 miles of nothing, she says. But for the woman who will go 501 miles, there is something more. A small, brave house, an old one. She has been waiting for you. Some women don't want it to be, some women don't want to be in the psychic desert. They hate the frailty, the spareness of it. They keep trying to crank a rusty jalopy, I guess I'm saying that right, a rusty old car, I think, and bump their way down the road to a fantasized, shining city of the psyche. But they are disappointed, for the lush and the wild is not there. It is in the spirit world, that world between worlds, that river beneath the river. Don't be a fool. Go back and stand under that one red flower and walk straight ahead for that last hard mile. Go up and knock on the old weathered door. Climb up to the cave. Crawl through the window of a dream. Sift the desert and see what you find. It is the only work we have to do. You wish psychoanalytic advice? Go gather bones. And so that's how chapter 1 ends, and I just think it's beautiful. I hope this resonated with you. I hope that it is kind of pulling those puzzle pieces together for you. I hope that it's strengthening you, validating you, and I hope that you learned something from it. And I just thank you for joining me. I'll be doing chapter 2 again soon, and I'll be putting some other videos out there that are not solely on the book. So guys, thanks again. If you enjoyed this, please hit like. I'd love it if you want to subscribe, and you can always hit the bell to be notified when I post new content. Thanks again. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.